Welcome to the Powered by Age-Friendly City Zoomcast reality-style podcast.
We are movers and shakers, shaking up the old notion of silent, helpless, invisible seniors.
This is a new series of podcasts funded by the City of Vancouver and the 411 Senior Center Society.
As PBA AFC ambassadors, we
raise awareness,
share our original stories and poems,
inform, advocate, and involve seniors in discussing important social issues.
In short, these podcasts will help us,
you, in creating an age-friendly city for Vancouver today,
tomorrow the world.
You can hear us everywhere podcasts are heard. Welcome to our first meeting in July, our first Thursday in July. This is Powered by Age, our age-friendly city. I want to say reality radio. We are a senior-led podcast program. We have been emerging from a physical space where we met to this platform. And what we do at the beginning each time, we have people starting with me at Charlotte Farrell. I forget to say who I am, the host, the coordinator for the program. And I'm going to ask each person to just say your first to last name and who you are. And we have a special guest that Morgan will also be introducing. Morgan was new to our group last week. So we'll start with Adele.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adele Arop. I'm a filmmaker and a model and an activist in Vancouver. And I've been working with Powered by Age for the last couple of months. And yeah, it's been really great.
And tell them your role.
So I'm pretty much helping to mentor people with, I'm a documentary filmmaker. So I'm helping people organize organizing groups and mentoring them through the process of interviewing and kind of like whatever challenges that come up with learning how to use this technology, or if they just have questions or whatever interests.
Okay, and so later I'll be talking about going forward. As some of you know, we are designating particular topics for each week. So I'll talk a bit more about that. And then people who want to work on that particular topic, you'll have one of the three of us as a mentor that helps the group to put their presentation together. So the area that Adele is working with is both those people that are doing we call roving reporters or interviews, and the topic area is emotional and alternative health. Robin will be coming on. She's in another meeting, learning something that will be valuable to us because it's on dealing with race and conversations. But her area is general health and wellness, and then also people who are doing stories. My area is food and nutrition. The group that I'm working with will be presenting next week, and then I'm working genre-wise with poets. So toward the end of the meeting, we'll ask people, if there are particular areas that you are interested in so that we can schedule and target them in. Okay, so continuing with introducing people, Leslie.
Yes, Leslie Hebert. I'm a New Westminster resident. I teach ESL via Skype on the computer, and I'm also a writer. I'm a member of the Royal City Literary Arts Society, Century House, the New Westminster Council of Women, and the New Westminster Lawn Bowling Club. So I have a variety of interests. I'm also a member of our local Connaught Heights Neighborhood Association.
Wonderful. Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Hogan, and I'm with Quirky, which is the Queer Imaging and Writing Collective for Elders, which is a 14-year-old organization that meets at Britannia when we meet in person, that is. And we're a writing and performance group, and we've worked and collaborated with Youth for a Change, a youth group out in Surrey, for several years now. And we've just published our 7th anthology.
Right, and last week I think we had a video that we were hoping to share. I don't know whether you are able to show it today or not.
Well, I can look for, you mean the video? It wasn't shown last week?
That was the one that had showed the different voices. It was a Zoom compilation.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yes,
that
we
was,
saw that.
Yeah, we saw
yeah,
a quirky
we saw
video.
that. I mean, we have a longer video that was used at Surrey Pride, and that was part of it, what you saw last week.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of the other one, which we'll see probably during August. Okay, Chris.
I'm Chris Morrissey. I'm a happy resident of East Bend, and I too belong to Quirky and participate in that at Britannia. And I've missed a few sessions because I've had some health issues, but I'm back, I hope.
Well,
And
welcome.
yeah,
Okay, Elaine.
Hi, my name is Elaine Wu, and I'm a writer. I usually write poetry, but I also write micro essays and recipes and all kinds of things. Um, I'm interested in all aspects of health and including diet, exercise, um, working for emotional balance.
Okay, and I think have you been in touch with Sylvie about the group that's presenting next week on health?
No, I haven't
I mean,
heard
no,
from
it's
her.
food. I'm sorry, next week is food and nutrition. I think if you are doing something with emotional health, then the uh, the mentor for that group would be Adele. So just make sure to get your information to her, and she would be giving you a call. Okay.
Maybe you could put her contact info on the chat because
Here, I'll put in my email for you.
Oh, thank you.
And if you want, if it's easier to call me too, here's my number.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, Luke, were you able to send emails to other people?
Yeah, I sent it to Sylvie and Judith.
And I got one as well.
And also Leslie, who's already here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I figured it out after I sent the email.
So maybe to the rest of the group, because there might be other people that are trying to get in on that other link. If you just send it to the BCC group. Okay, so now we're going to introduce Morgan, and who was with us for the first time last week. So you could introduce yourself again and a special guest.
Hi, everybody. Morgan Capo here. Again, thank you for having me join. I do the community engagement and Indigenous relations for Digital Health Circle. We have a partnership with the 411 Senior Center Society as well to try and ensure that membership is on the right side of the digital divide. Also, I sit on the Indigenous Knowledge Keeper and Elders Society board of directors, and so I take care of, right now, memberships closing to 40 elders in the Lower Mainland, but we're looking to extend our social mandate for all of Lower Mainland, including Vancouver, the islands, and out near Chilliwack as well. Here I have with me today one of those elders. Her name is Ruby Marks, and if you'd like to introduce yourself, Ruby, that would be great.
My name is Ruby, and I'm from Haida Gwaii. I work a lot with youth, Aboriginal youth, and I do a lot of crafts like beading and basket weaving, that kind of thing.
And you're also very knowledgeable in our medicines, our traditional medicines as well, which is, I think, should be noted. Thank you.
And last week, Morgan, tell about the event that you did on Sunday afternoon.
Oh, yes. So when speaking with the elders, it's becoming more and more apparent that they want to have more gatherings. And of course, everybody knows how challenging that can be during this time. So we've kind of created a way to all meet outdoors in a park. And so last Sunday, we had a picnic in Bear Creek Park where attendees were able to get to the park. and meet there. And we had a little potluck picnic, and it was really great. The feedback was wonderful. All of the elders, I think it really, kind of addresses a small portion of that mental health aspect, especially now with social isolation. And also keeping everyone's safety in mind as well. So I distributed masks, we had hand sanitizer and things like that, but it was a really great event. And they're looking forward to the next one, where I have some ideas planned. One of them will be to teach everyone how to use Zoom. Another one will be an outdoor movie. So I have a projector and a large backyard, but of course I'd have to keep the numbers to a certain minimum given with the space, and ensuring everyone has the 2-meter distancing, and have, a little outdoor movie night. So those are some things upcoming in the plans for the elders out here. And if anybody is interested in joining and participating, let me know.
And then we've given a welcome to members of the Elder Circle to join and share stories, or even around topics. It doesn't just have to be Indigenous stories, but around the topic when we're talking about emotional health, food and nutrition, any of the topics, people that would like to contribute, we welcome and look forward to having you do that.
Be great. I'm sure a lot of the elders would love to contribute and share their voices, for sure.
Okay, so we call today a virtual buffet with things that people might want to share. We've had people share their poetry, we've had people share stories. So who brought a poem or story they want to share?
I didn't bring a poem or a story, but if I could open the podcast with a land acknowledgement, I would like the opportunity to do so, if that's okay.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so I'd like to begin this podcast, or this buffet meeting, by respectfully acknowledging the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, Squamish, Coquitlam, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Kwantlen, Kikite, Tawasin, and I think I've named them all. And also, I would like to extend our appreciation for the opportunity to hold this on these shared territories. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a story, Charlotte, for later, if you'd like.
Okay, you could bring that story now.
Oh, okay. Because it's Canada Day, this is something that I recently have published in Canadian Stories, and it's based on sort of family memories. So it deals with food, and it deals with memories. So it seems to touch a whole bunch of bases here. It's a small short story. It's a creative nonfiction. I call it Choke Cherries. And it's about stories that I heard from my husband's family about growing up, about the ancestors growing up on the prairies, actually. Okay. The truth is elusive. Try to catch it, and it scurries away into a dark corner. But sit and listen quietly, and it may leap right into your lap. All my in-laws had their own interpretation of the truth. At family gatherings, I heard many versions of the same story. The facts were often the cause of disagreements, giving rise to the lively conversations which were always part of a good visit. The one person who provided hard facts was Grandma, who was always an accurate source for places and dates. But these were only the matter-of-fact bones of the story. I wanted to make these bones come alive. To create a compelling story, I realized I would need to add flesh to the bones, piece by piece. Grandma's eldest daughter, Dot, told a lively tale, but I was never sure how much of what she said was true. She dwelt with fascination on the worst aspects of life, money-grubbing relatives, poverty, and near starvation. Her childhood had been hard, and it was somebody's fault. That somebody was her father. The crusty old Irishman we knew as Grandpa was Grandma's second husband. The grandfather who bore the brunt of Dot's scorn had been gone for many years. Everyone had their own idea about how he died. The most popular but least likely theory was that he choked on a cherry pit. Grandma would never say the terrible word cancer out loud. When asked how Grandpa died, she would purse her lips and shake her round little head. It wasn't a cherry pit, she would say, it was... Then she would pause, lean forward, and trace a letter C in the air with her stubby forefinger. So where did our name come from? One of the grandchildren would ask. Was Grandpa German? Oh no, he was a Frenchman. His name was Julius Eugene Hebert. He was from Michigan. Grandma once showed me an old family photo of Julius as a child, standing with his brother Louis and his sister Rose. Dressed in a velvet suit, he stood in front of his stern-faced mother Adeline and his barrel-chested father Joseph, a quarry worker who would have looked at home in the wrestling ring. Adeline constantly prayed for Julius, who was a sickly child, and was convinced that her prayers had saved her son's life. But God struck a hard bargain. Joseph died young. Left with 3 children, Adeline survived by marrying Henry Borden. She became Grandma Borden, and the siblings became the Borden kids, although Julius kept the name Hebert and continued to speak French to his mother. After Grandma died, the aunts were going through some old photos and came across a picture of Grandma Borden. Dot looked at the picture and shuddered. That's the old witch, she spat, crumpling up the picture. She was something to do with that Lizzie Borden that killed her father with an axe. She used to yell at us kids and chase us around the house with a broomstick. Our dad was French, you know. Him and Grandma Borden used to talk to each other in French. It was real good French, too, she added, tossing the offending picture onto the floor. Not that common kind. I wondered fleetingly how Dot was such an authority on a language she could not speak, but was really more interested in the photo. I picked it up and examined the poker-faced harridan peering through the cracked surface. Arms crossed over a long black dress, she sat on the front steps of an unknown house with a girl of about 3 on one side and a boy of about 4 on the other. The children, obviously uncowed by the old witch, looked as if they were about to burst into a fit of hysterical giggles. Adeline used to work in a cook shack feeding prairie threshing crews. That was where Julius met Esther Apel, his future wife and our future grandma. Julius and Esther were an unlikely match. When they married in 1915, she was 17 and he was in his 30s. She was of Lutheran German descent and he was a French-speaking Catholic. In addition to adjusting to these differences, Esther had to deal with her indomitable mother-in-law, who seemed to deliberately shut her out by speaking French to Julius. Esther had 4 children in 8 years. Julius worked at the flour mill in Moose Jaw. Grandma Borden, an expert seamstress, made clothes for the grandchildren from bleached flour sacks. She also babysat, although this seemed to have been a bone of contention. Mom was bringing us up Lutheran, Dot told me, but Grandma thought we'd go to hell, so she snuck us into the Catholic Church and sprinkled us with holy water. Mom never knew. Then a pile of 100-pound flour sacks fell on Julius at the mill and broke his back. Adeline must have prayed extra hard because Julius survived again. After months in a full body cast, he was ready to go back to work, but his job at the mill was gone. Julius and Esther sold their home in Moose Jaw and moved north to White Beach, Saskatchewan, because, Grandma said, the government was giving away free land. When the aunts got together, the White Beach homesteading days inevitably came up. Dot did most of the talking. He only went because his neighbor was going. He wasn't a farmer. He didn't know anything about building a cabin. He didn't have a clue. Useless he was. Lucky we didn't freeze to death. Then he couldn't grow nothing. There were times all we had to eat were potatoes and flour gravy. Sometimes Aunt Flo would manage to get a word in. That's right, Dot. Those were hard times. We were lucky we didn't starve to death. Grandma never said much about life up north. She would merely provide a few telling details in her usual matter-of-fact way. It was poor land that wouldn't grow nothing. I used to dig Seneca root. I got a penny a root. Moving up north was the worst thing we ever did. Grandma never said a mean word about anybody. The worst she ever said about Julius was that he was a hard man to live with. Mom always had to be busy, said Dot. Do you remember, Flo? If Dad saw her sitting, he'd find her something to do. He made her can those tiny wild choke cherries. And you know, he was so mean, he wouldn't waste anything. When he ate those cherries, he'd swallow them, pits and all. I remember Dot. She used to hate that job. Esther's youngest daughter, Dolores, was born at White Beach. Dot continued. Mom never ate proper when she was expecting Dolores. It did something to that kid's brain. She was never right. Mom had another baby up there too. We were miles from anywhere. No hospital, no doctor. I helped deliver it. Mom nearly bled to death. A little boy it was, 3 months early, and stillborn. When the land finally produced, Esther asked Julius to dig a root cellar so they could store turnips and potatoes through the winter. But the man who was always finding jobs to keep his wife busy balked at this role reversal. Not now, I've got other things to do. If you wait too long, the ground will be frozen. Not today, my back's too sore. No longer young, Julius probably had a permanent disability from the accident at the mill. In addition, all the cherry pits he had eaten had impacted in his bowel. He probably spent his last years in constant pain. But if Esther wanted a damn root cellar, she'd get one. Julius grabbed a shovel, stormed outside, and attacked the freezing ground as if it was his old boss at the mill. His foot slipped on a patch of ice, and he fell on the handle of his shovel, which pierced his intestines. Although it was too late by the time they got him to hospital, it would have only been a matter of time. Julius had intestinal cancer, caused, they say, by all those impacted cherry pits. Esther abandoned the homestead and took her children down to her mother's farm in southern Saskatchewan. Grandma April was lovely, said Dot, and we always ate good there. With no more horrific details to share, Dot was finally silent, and Flo got the last word. You know, after Dad died, I heard Mom say she was never so glad of choke cherries, and that's the God's honest truth.
Wow. Very interesting. There's a thing that we do that's called RIF, and that is reflection, informative, interesting, friendly feedback. So is there
Yes.
anyone who'd like to provide some feedback? If RIF? And I have the microphones muted just so there's a background noise. Sylvie, were you wanting to say something? Let me unmute. I'll
Sylvie's
unmute.
muted.
Okay.
Yeah, I only caught half of it, Leslie. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was busy on a phone call, so I didn't get the chance to listen to it all. So I'm not the best person to give you any feedback on that. But yeah, I'll listen to the recording, and if we can talk, if you want to, after.
Sure.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was cool. Very descriptive. It was very descriptive, but I was trying to understand what is the story kind of, if you don't mind me asking. Like, is it about like roots, kind of looking at your family?
Yeah, it's my husband's family. It's based on my husband's family stories.
Also,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was really nice. I thought it was really like well descriptive, and I got like a nice understanding of kind of like the dynamic, and also getting that reference of like, this where were we? Where's our name come from? Like things like that. It's a thing that comes up quite often. So it's like a nice like looking into your family lineage.
Yeah, I think anytime you get a big family group together, these sort of conversations always come up, and nobody ever really agrees. You know, there's always so many different sides to it.
Yeah, exactly. we all have the side of history we choose to.
I liked it too. I thought it was very descriptive. I mean, I could sort of picture it and the setting and all like that, and also the way the cherry pits just followed through the whole story. That was very good.
Thanks.
Yeah, and certainly, the family dynamics comes out clearly.
Hi, it's Judith here. I finally got signed in. I was having some problems. So thank you. It was really intense. I did catch the last part of it. And it was really telling because it reminds me of my family's names and some stories that I heard about the Depression years in my own family in the prairies. Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, you're welcome.
I like the transitions. I could just picture the family moving up and down the country. That would be a good story to have a video following along where you can see the places, around the country light up. But also, when you said sometimes there's the person that tells the worst story, talking about, the pits in his stomach being, a source of cancer. But that was a very good story that would help people within the family, understand some of the people and personalities. The grandmother that was linking herself with Lizzie Borden. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah, and she was always, she was the one that, she dwelt on the negative, but nothing she ever said. I never thought that anything she said was really true. It all came from her imagination, which I think is where the connection with Lizzie Borden came from.
Okay. Elizabeth, Elizabeth said that she might have a poem. Elaine, did you have a poem that you wanted to share?
I have a few poems. Some are from a new project I'm working on. My dad is very ill, and I want to write something to honor him. And I'm not sure if I'll share the work publicly. By way of publishing with a traditional publisher, I just thought I'd publish it privately and share with family and friends, because my dad was always a very humble person and he didn't like to draw attention to himself. But when I saw him last year, he did agree for me to write something honoring him. And some of these, I couldn't write about my dad without writing about my family and my own past and how we responded to it. So I have a poem about previous incidents in school. I have a poem titled In Class. In the back of the classroom, ping, pang, boom, Lotus's skull split. Voice twist sound, her name fractures in ugly driving shards deep. Despite MLK, civil rights had not marched into this classroom. She had a loss as to how to respond. Eventually, Lotus learned to prune their fronting voices, delicately pick their last slivers from her brain. I use alternative names to my family members. I wasn't able to put myself fully into the reality of those incidents, and so Lotus is the name I gave myself.
Oh, it's like a pen name.
There were things that happened in school that I didn't have the understanding when I was so young to understand that things teachers said authoritatively were true or not. But I have another poem. It's titled Out of the Frame. This is a quote from a teacher. Needles snipped off hair swallowed could puncture your intestine. Mr. I casually dropped off his tongue. Topic of instruction could have been osmosis passing through membranes. Why did it stick? None of us knew. 12-year-old suburbanites too innocent to label his words. What's that name for it? You frame it. And I have a poem that it's a concrete poem. It's in the shape, the title is Arc. It's in the shape of an arc. And it was an incident that someone, an acquaintance relayed to me. She was working for an organization in I think Delta or something, or Surrey, I can't remember which. And she told me the story, and I wrote a story around it. It's written sort of like with film jargon. Day one, scene one, camera, establishing shot, action. An alabaster forearm propels a carton of fries from truck window. Camera, cut to, sound, actual sound, smacking on turbaned head. Blood red ketchup, dribbling fury, action, beat. Potato curls cling to white cloth. Camera, break the bubble. Black diesel fart in bed. Camera, cut away. Camera, follow shot. Eye of citron skin, witness, driving behind the truck. Utter a vow to alter this tale's closure. It's a wrap. And I have one last
Well, hold on,
one.
Elaine. Oh, okay. If we'll do that one, then we'll be able to get some reflective feedback for you. Okay.
Okay. It's titled Virtue of Smallness. Shattered clamshell fragments pave the crescent shore. Loose mosaic tiles, barnacle cone houses, and soft-skinned bladder-rack bulbs, pinky wide to the big toes of hard-hatted clams, bear scars, but are unbroken by ocean's hammer fist.
Okay. Chris, did you want to say something?
Yeah, the last one there I thought was very visual, and I liked it wasn't literal, it was using something else to describe reality. I like that one. I'd like to hear it again, but yeah, I like that one.
Adele, what did you think of the one that uses formulated like a movie script?
Pardon me?
Yes. No, one of her poems, it was formatted like a movie script.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's good. That's really cool. I like that creativity. I had to learn how to, from writing poetry to writing scripts. It's a weird change, so that's really great. I actually have a poem for you guys too.
Okay. Well, let's see if there's anyone else has a response for hers, and then we'll hear your poem. Okay. Leslie has her hand up, and Morgan is moving. If it was an auction, Morgan, you would have bought it, but you're moving your elbow. Okay, Leslie.
Scratching my head.
Oh, I unmute you.
There, I had to unmute myself, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, so in the first poem, I really liked the phrase, was it Lotus learn to prune those haunting voices? I thought that was a wonderful turn of phrase. I was just wondering why you chose Lotus to identify yourself. Was there some meaning behind that?
No, there's no meaning. I just I have been reading a lot about Buddhism, and my son he made this sculpture when he was very young in elementary school, and it's essentially a little flower pot, a tiny wee flower pot, and then it's got clay soil, and then there's a plastic lotus stuck into the clay, and I still have that little gift of his, and the pot is painted this lovely pink, and the lotus is fuchsia, and I do like shades of bread, and I think the pinks are more delicate, and they suit older people better. And no matter your skin tone, and also it's feminine. It's stereotypically feminine, and there were all kinds of reasons why lotus kind of sucks.
Okay. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks for the poetry.
Oh, thanks for your comments, Leslie.
Okay. Thank you for sharing those. It gives a lot of different style ideas. We have other poets that from time to time people share. And as we go into this other format, there will be sometimes that we'll have a 20-minute set that might just be poets. We'll have things that we're recording during this Thursday time, but as we have people working on different genres, there will be times where we'll have with Robin people doing stories, with me doing poetry, and with Adele doing interviews. So now Adele has a poem to share.
I wrote this poem in response to like a image. I don't know if you guys can see this image. It's like you know, the David?
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote, it says, if only we could extend our hand and receive salvation, our world explodes into chaos. History reenacted, our suppressed pain boils to the surface. We are not the gods we falsely believed. Human beings with a rich history of cruelty. No matter what face, color, or image, we all share in the destruction as we live separated from salvation. So I wrote that in response to kind of like what's going on with the state of the world, and also like with all like these like movements that have been going on. And so like I've been doing a lot of like frontline photography for a lot of the protests and rallies that have been going on. And I've been writing like poetry in response to some of it. And this is the last one too, it's pretty short as well. It says, with pain-slicked eyes, he emerged from the ashes, professing to the world he's human. Dear Black man, does the world not know the exhaustion that plagues your existence, the pain that oozes with the fear of uncertainty? Alas, the world targets you. All we say is why, with pain-slicked eyes. Yeah, so those are my two poems.
Oh,
so thanks, Adele. They're both very powerful.
Yeah.
I like them. I like them.
Any comments? Did you have a comment? Oh,
going on today?
Somebody. Yes, Chris is unmuted. Were you raising your hand, Chris, or just moving? Oh, I have to unmute you. I mute everybody for just take out background sounds, and then it's a little two-step thing to unmute people again.
No, I was just moving my hand.
You're like Morgan in the auction. You know, when you move something, you bought it. You bought your opportunity.
No, somebody else will buy it. They're going to lift their hand. There you go. Luke's just bought it.
Charlotte, I sent you a private chat, but I see you didn't. I don't think you saw it. And I'm just wondering, there's somebody I know, Noreen Braun. She's a Vancouver Indigenous singer-songwriter, and she sent out a song, well, actually a whole video for Canada Day, but it's beautiful and inspiring. And I'm just wondering if there was a way, if I got the link to you to her song, if you'd be able to play it here.
Well, we have our tech master, or I won't call you master. We have Luke on the line, and Luke can probably bring it up through shared screen if you give him, if you
Well, I
send
have
him
to
the
send
link.
it to somebody. It's, I would just forward her email, which has got a link to both the video and and just the song itself.
So, do I have you, Luke? Did
So
I mute
should I
Luke?
just
No.
send it to you, Charlotte?
No. Send it to Luke.
Do you have it handy, or you want to put it
Well,
on right?
I just have to look it up on my. It's on my laptop, which I'm on. Yeah. How do I send it to you? I don't know. I don't think I have your email address. Or
You can just post it in the chat box, and then we can.
okay. All right. I'll have to look for it. All right.
Okay. Elder Marks, did you have something that you would like to share from poetry or commentary on today?
Actually, I don't have any poetry, but I could tell you a little bit about my life, my upbringing.
Okay.
I was put into a foster home when I was almost 5. I'm in Vancouver, and actually West Vancouver, but and my mom had 13 children. We were all fostered except for her last one. I didn't know my siblings growing up, so it made it quite, I started meeting my siblings when I was probably 25 when I started meeting them. I grew up with two siblings, my sister, older brother. And it's been bringing up a lot of issues lately because I just lost the brother that I grew up with. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, actually, I'm going to call it. He was kind of my caregiver, my protector, my brother. So it's Canada Day. A lot of Aboriginal people don't really kind of celebrate it because of that particular story or my upbringing. A lot of Aboriginal people have grown up with that, being taken away from their families and losing their culture, their language, not being able to connect with their families. I may come back to it. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Well, thank you for sharing that and helping to understand, because at the end of the news last night, they showed some of the protests and Cease Canada Day or anti-Canada Day celebrations. And I think it helps for people to understand why. Adele, did you hear or go to do any documenting at any of the protests against Canada Day?
No, I didn't go out to do the front line this time because I was moving yesterday. I'm in a new house. I just moved.
Cool.
But a lot of my friends were there, and some of my friends were performing. There was actually a few things that were happening. So at Trout Lake, they were having a BIPOC. What's it called? Yeah, they were having a BIPOC celebration, which was celebrating the diversity. And so they were having like Indigenous people doing some traditional performances. They're having dancers from the community. And if some of you guys don't know what BIPOC is, it's Black Indigenous People of Color. And so like that's the new term for everybody who's kind of on the, like, for all of us who are minorities, even though we actually end up making the majority when we all get grouped together. But a lot of the industries are trying to coin the term to be for more inclusive spaces. And so a Black Indigenous People of Color celebration of Canada Day is just sharing their differences of culture. And it was really cool. I was just seeing some videos, and it was a really nice way to celebrate. They were also having a march at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and people were marching against Canada Day, and this was actually led by a group of Indigenous people, I think. Just from what I saw online, there were like Indigenous people talking about why they don't celebrate Canada Day and why they're standing against it and why they're marching against it. And that's completely fair because they stole land from people, and now they're just trying to create laws to force. Like it's just really dumb. Anyways, I have a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to get into it. So yeah, so there's just a lot of subgroups that are trying to figure out how are we going to fight against all these injustices that have been caused by imperialists, and how are we going to reclaim. And my kind of stance was, I'm not even going to acknowledge the day. I'm not even going to go out. I'm not going to walk. I'm just going to make it like any other day. And so that was my silent protest. But everybody else was on the street and doing their own things to celebrate. But we don't need to even acknowledge the day. If nobody ever celebrated Canada Day, they would eventually stop. So that's probably the better way instead of protesting. But that's my own opinion. Anyways, back to you.
I kind of did the same. I couldn't go out anyway because of some physical things, but I've been very very challenged, not challenged, but thinking about everything. I mean, I am a settler. I am an immigrant to Canada. I came with my family. And so, thinking about that and thinking about how that came to be, there was one of the things that I think, Leslie, you said in your story, because they had been given this land, the government gave them this land. And the first thing that went through my head was, well, it wasn't really theirs to give. Yeah. So I did the same thing. I didn't wear red or white. I stayed home because I couldn't go to the protest. But I think the more we understand the history and what's happened in our country, the better we'll be for it. I struggle sometimes because I don't know. It's hard as an individual to see where to go. I work with refugees, and so one of the things we're looking at and thinking about is how do we make sure that newcomers to Canada understand the history, and how do we set up some kind of process so that the people whose land it is welcomes them to be here on this land. Because I know that there's always been a great spirit of sharing and openness in terms of Aboriginal folks. And so I think that would be very, very similar. So looking to see small gestures that we can do that actually acknowledges the painful history that our country has, and that Canada Day really, really shows, right? I mean, yeah, and I didn't watch any of the things on TV, but I know from past Canada Days, they've always had, quote, Indian dancers, so like showing off. Canada likes to show off. And so having dancers wearing indigenous clothing and dancing and all that kind of stuff, which is a show. It's not really genuine, because so then what? What happens next? Not much of anything. So anyway, yeah. So I sort of did the silent protest as well.
Morgan, what do you think? I was going to ask Morgan what your thought is about some of the protests. Were talking about the number of Indigenous men and women who've been murdered, crimes that haven't been solved, and the need for advocacy to get those crimes solved. That the Red Women Rising report. It's a year old, and none of the things have been resolved. But what are your thoughts about the protest and Canada Day?
For me, I did my own silent protest as well. I stopped celebrating Canada a few years ago when I became getting more educated with my culture and my people. And so, to what Chris was saying, how the news or certain shows highlight Indigenous community members in their regalia celebrating Canada Day. I don't know. I think I don't know how accurate that is. I know I'm not the only Indigenous person that does not celebrate this day. So, and I think it's pretty common within our community. But with the protesting, for people to go out and protest against it, I stand behind that. But I also do recognize, though, that there is, newcomers as well, and they want to celebrate being Canadian, and I think they absolutely should do that. But again, going back to Chris's comment, there is such an importance to teach the newcomers as they come. I mean, if Indigenous people had that opportunity to do that hundreds of years ago, and to teach about the land, about Mother Earth, about Creator and our spirituality and our culture and our way of life, and always giving back, and kind of like a circle, and everything is kind of like always in a circle, there's always balance. And I think teaching, just because we had that opportunity taken away from us to teach years ago doesn't mean that we can't do it now at every opportunity that we have. So to connect with newcomers and people coming to Canada, I think is very important to teach them all of those things.
That brings another point. When we were talking about the history, I interviewed a panel on CJSF. Some of you might know on Friday mornings I do a speak up show, and we've been talking about Black history, the problem that exists when people don't know their history, Indigenous history. So last year when the City Planning Council brought together different groups, and one of the things that people said that should be done is have newcomers, have a center where newcomers come and learn the history. But there's an effort underway to have a true history taught, because if it's just the same history that people have that don't talk about the contributions, don't give the full breadth of what happened with the settlers, don't talk about those things, and people just get an abbreviated history. One of the things that's happening within radio, CJSF belongs to this National Association of Collegiate Radio, and they had a caucus for those initials, BICOT, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, to talk about ways that we might also use radio differently. So we are working toward looking at some broadcasts that would be heard across the country from all of the different stations, that would have people who are instructors of students, researchers in Black history, Indigenous history, history of other people of color, and push toward having the ministries of education get the curriculum change. I did an interview that included some young adult Black Canadians around what they experienced within the Canadian school system. Nothing about their history are being made fun of, about their hair, clothes, etc. And Adele created a program, a workshop during Black History Month, and presented it at a school where the principal apologized to her for how they had treated her when she was a child there. But that's one model of a curriculum. So we're looking for using the media in a way that people who have studied, people who do have models, could present them so people could hear them across all of the provinces, but also push to put in the advocacy. Like, so I think it's Sylvie listened to the broadcast, and she wrote a letter to the ministry. Was the Ministry of Education you wrote a letter to? Wait,
I did. I was really, and still do get emotional when I think about the treatment of those children. It's shocking appalling, and how it's been allowed to go on so long is beyond my comprehension, and something needs to change. And I include Indigenous children in that too. It's just, it's quite unbelievable. So feeling as I have, kind of useless, powerless to do anything, I thought, well, okay, I can do this. It's something. I can do this. I can. So yes, I sent a letter and said, I think you ought to change the curriculum, include some BIPOC history into it, and preferably taught by Black teachers and Indigenous teachers, not by white teachers. Don't get me wrong, I have the greatest respect for teachers of all colors, but honestly, you just can't. If you're white, you cannot possibly, you have not lived the experience. And so I think you cannot portray the events of history in the right context.